Welcome to another edition of Real, Raw, and Honest. I'm so glad that you've joined me today as we continue to look at healthy relationships or unhealthy relationships. Which one do you have? And how can you make it better if your relationship is just maybe a little unhealthy but not toxic? So, what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at some of the lies and some of the truths about relationship because sometimes it's easy for us to get, confused as we watch some movies, as we watch some things that, some of our favorite actors or maybe even our parents and our siblings, right? To look at them and go, well, I don't want a relationship like that, or I do want a relationship like that. And very often when we come out of those unhealthy marital relationships that our parents were in, we don't really know what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some lies and we're going to look at some truth. And then next week we'll probably do the same, but just to put a few of those things out there, because an unhealthy relationship or the lie will say this, even though I don't treat you well, I still love you. Well, is that really the truth? If I don't treat you well, I still love you. I can abuse you. I can say mean things to you. I can hurt your feelings, but I still love you. I'm going to, cheat on you, but I still love you. I'm going to take all of our money and I'm going to go on a holiday with the boys and I'm going to leave you and the kids behind, but I still love you. The wife might say, I'm going to go down and I'm going to go buy, $2,000 worth of clothes. And I know I shouldn't, but I still love you. No. So what's the truth behind what true love actually looks like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? Well, true love goes way beyond the feelings, right? Like when we first dating somebody, we can go, I really like this person. I think they seem really kind, really gentle, really generous. They seem authentic. And we can go, wow, I really like this person. I think I could fall in love with this person. But in the beginning of any relationship, we don't really know what we're getting because everybody's always on their best behavior. Everybody's doing all the right things and saying all the right things. And really, honestly, I tell people, you've got to know who that person is long term. What are they like when they're angry? That's a big one, right? Looking at that. And then deciding, can I live with this the rest of my life? Because who they are when they're angry in the first 6 months probably isn't going to look the same as who they are when they're angry 6 years in. So if they're already volatile and they're borderline abusive but trying to hold it back, you can be, pretty confident that in 6 years it's going to look a little bit more violent, if not a lot more violent. So looking for those red flags in the relationships in the early part of the relationship. So what's the truth? The truth is that love is more than feelings. Love is more than just how you make me feel. If my heart goes pitter patter, when I see you because you're the best looking person in the room, that's great. Maybe, when you buy me that, that ring, it made me feel good. But love is much more than your feelings, and those feelings will wane as you're married. I was married the first time for almost 28 years, and there's days it's a decision more than it is just going, oh, I don't get those little happy little butterflies in my stomach anymore. It's like, no. You bought a car and you didn't tell me. Like, that can be a big deal. It's looking at those things and going, okay, so true love goes beyond the emotions. It goes beyond how that person looks at you and the butterflies that you might get. So it true love involves your attitudes, your actions, your motives, and it's looking at those things and going, overall, am I feeling love? Am I seeing love? Am I experiencing a loving attitude toward me? Am I seeing loving actions toward me? Are the motives behind the things that are done for my benefit and my welfare, or are they for my harm? Right? So the love includes all of those things, because when we truly feel something or some way about somebody, those things will come out. And if you don't think that's true, you find somebody who hates another individual, it's hard for them to be kind to that individual, let alone civil, right? So looking at that and going, all right, I'm all for boundaries. Don't get me wrong. I'm for boundaries. But how we're treated reflects the truth of what somebody actually does feel, whether they love you or not. So the thing about true love is it turns those loving feelings we have into loving actions. If you really love somebody, you don't want to harm them. You don't want to bring hurt to them. You don't want to cause them pain. You want to see that they're protected. You want to see that they're happy, that they're at peace, that their needs are met. That's what you want when you really love somebody. So that's what we're looking for. Overall, how are you feeling? And what are you seeing? So those attitudes and those actions that we are experiencing are vital to understand the love and the respect that we're receiving. Are they emotionally available? Are you being respected? If you're being the butt of the joke in front of other people, are you being respected? If your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, if they belittle you and make you feel foolish in front of other people, if they yell at you and make you feel, less than in the grocery store, is that respect? And then there's also the emotionally available person. As a spouse, as a parent, are you emotionally available? Are you on your phone all the time? Are you watching a show? Are you watching sports and nobody can interrupt you until there's a break in the show? That's not being emotionally available. And those things, they send a message. They say, I'm not as important to you as these other things or these other people or, whatever it is that you're tied up in. So being available, emotionally available and present, right? There's a lot of parents who have to work and they travel abroad and then they come back and they're home for, a week or 2 weeks or a weekend. And that's difficult on a family, but you can still make that work through FaceTime, through that kind of thing. But being present makes a big difference. But if when you get home, your first choice is to go out and do some golfing, that's not a good sign. That's not a good signal. So being emotionally available, being present, being off your phone, being connected, those things show love, right? I'm interested in you. That's what it says. And because I'm interested in you, I'm going to hear you. And I want to hear about your day. I want to spend time with you. I want to know what's going on. So again, meeting each other's needs. How can you meet each other's needs? This is the one thing that I hear so often from young couples, and I hear it all the time. It's like, why should I have to ask him to take out the garbage 3 times or 4 times until I just do it myself? Or I'm angry. Why do I have to do that? And then he comes back, and inevitably, it's the same thing all the time. Well, I heard her the first time. I said I was going to do it. I meant I was going to do it. But when she keeps asking me, it makes me not want to do it. Okay, just take out the garbage. Honestly, just take out the garbage. Why does she even have to ask you to take it out? That's the reality. If you love her, you respect her. If you respect her, you are going to meet her needs. If you love her, you meet her needs. Her need is for you to take out the garbage, right? So this is one of the arguments that I hear repeated throughout the years. And it's so like and that is a mother issue. Most often it comes back to being a mother. When my mother would ask me and then I'd say, I just want to finish this thing. And then I'd forget. And then it was like this dripping tap in this argument. And so they just carry that into their relationship. These are some of the things, right? Are you meeting her needs? So we're not just talking about, there's many needs. There's the physical needs. Does she need a hug? Does he need a hug? Does he need space? Does she need some space away from the kids? Meeting the needs of the other person shows love. You go get your nails done. I'm going to take care of the kids, right? You know what? If you give me a list, I'll pick it up on my way home from work, right? Like, so it's meeting the needs of the other person. Hey, how can I take some stress off of you, hubby? Can I take the car in for an oil change? Meeting the other person's needs, not just intimately, although that is a huge part, but it's all of these other areas as well. And then accepting that person for who they are. That speaks volumes about love. When you accept that other person and you're not wanting to change them all the time, why can't you be more like her husband down the street? Do you see how lovely his lawn is? Do you see how much he does around the house? Just accepting them. Why can't you be more funny? Why do you always have to? My first husband, he was a little bit of an introvert. And I seem to have married as another introvert. But the reality is that he was an introvert, and so we seem to always end up having the New Year's Eve party at our house for the church, and so people would come over, and he would stay up until midnight. At 5 after 12, you couldn't find him; he'd gone to bed. He was gone, done, out of the room, out of the space. And he would just go to bed and he'd go to sleep and everybody else would have a good time. And even during that time, there would be times when the people would get too much and he would just disappear for a moment. He would go sit downstairs and, find a little corner where nobody could see him and he would just take a breather. But just accepting him for who he was. And it's okay for him to do that. Everybody all of a sudden they go, "Where's James?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." And I'd go, "What are you doing? You're in bed." And he'd go, "Yeah, I'm just tired." I'm like, okay, too much people. He couldn't do too much people. But accepting him for who he was shows that I love him. So I'd be like, yeah, okay, he went to bed, right? Just accepting your person for who they are. That's a big showing of love. And then encouraging them to be their own authentic self. It's so difficult to be authentic in today's world anyway. Who are you? What the world says you should be as a Christian, being your own authentic self in that, it's pretty difficult to find that nice balance. But it is possible. So being able to encourage somebody you can be funny, you can be these things, you can be a studious, studier of the word, you can love to pray, and I'm going to love all of those things that you do, but be authentic, be real. I've known people and they would go, I have to have my game face on all the time. I always have to be on my game. I can't relax. I can't be down because I'm a businesswoman, or a businessman. I have to have this. People expect me to be happy. They expect me to have all the answers. They expect all of these things of me. So that's who I have to be. I can never relax. I always have to be on. And I'm like, no, be your authentic self. It's okay for you to be a businesswoman or a businessman and be your authentic self. That's okay. You can do both. People want you to be real. They don't want you to be fake. So be you. Be who you are, who God created you to be in your mother's womb. Be that with Jesus. Be that in your relationship. Be your authentic self. Because the thing is that there's a truth here, is that when we are evaluating our relationships and we're looking at the people around us, especially before we're married or even after we're married, an unhealthy sign is this. They say that they love you, but they'd rather spend time doing anything else or being with anybody else. They would rather, if their investments and their money is more important than you have some situations that you need to look at. So those are some of the things, looking at it and going, okay, so he says he loves me, or she says she loves me, but they'd rather be anywhere else than with me. They'd rather be doing anything else than doing something with me. That's speaking of some unhealthy things that need to be looked at. So, and that goes for your children as well. You can say you love your children, but if you're doing always on your phone, watching TV, if you're always talking on your phone or playing games on your phone, if you're, reading, you're doing anything else but being with your children, the message you're sending your children is they're not that important. And that goes in your relationships as well. Same thing. So be present, right? Be aware. Because we pick up on those subtle cues. You say you love me, but you'd rather watch the game. You say you love me, but you'd rather go out with this friend again, right? So you say you love me, but you're not showing me. Remember, we talked about our actions showing how we love. So there's another thing that I want to bring up here about an unhealthy relationship is unhealthy relationships often carry with it a one-sidedness, right? So especially when one person has, got some abuse issues that they are walking in, verbally abusive, control issues, manipulation, whatever it is, physical violence, whatever those issues are, that one-sided relationship means this is what I want, and if you don't want my wrath to come out, you don't want my control, that verbal barrage to come your way, you're going to do what I want. And so that's never okay, because it's like if you say you love me, then prove it. You say you love me, then prove that you love me by doing X, Y, and Z. We should never throw those words out there. We should never say, if you love me, prove it. That is not words that should come out of our mouth, because the reality is, if you truly love somebody, they will know that they are loved. They will feel it. They will see it from the things that we just talked about, how they're being treated, how are they being respected. All of those things will prove that they are loved. But when you have this unhealthy side of this one-sided relationship, one of the things that will happen is that you will find that you can no longer stand up for yourself. Because if you stand up for yourself, then you don't love me. If you say no, then you don't love me. If you set a boundary with me, then you don't love me, because love says there's no boundaries. Love says you don't tell me no. Love says that I can do what I want and you're going to be okay with it. So you're the one that's doing all the sacrificing, right? You're the one that makes all the compromises. You set your needs to the side. You do everything you can to focus on making them happy. So all of the pressure of a successful relationship lands on you. That's unhealthy, because relationships are two-sided. Both people need to be working at the relationship. Both people need to be moving forward in making it successful. And so it is a compromise. There's a lot of compromise in relationships. There's a lot of coming together. There's a lot of discussing. There's a lot of there can be disagreements there, but there's an agreement that needs to be reached. And so these are some things, right? Like that. Where's your relationship at with this? Because inevitably, when you have that unhealthy relationship, when you're making all the compromises and you're the one that's setting aside things and you're the ones that's trying to make the other person make sure that they're happy, then at the end of the day, you become isolated, because you won't feel like you can go out with your friends. Because if you go out with your friends and something happens and you get home and they're angry, that's going to be your fault. How do you fix it? So, unhealthy versus healthy, because the reality is what they're saying. And another thing about these unhealthy relationships that can be said or not said is that if I'm unhealthy, it's your fault. I was just alluding into that when I was talking about what I was just talking about there, about you're giving it all because it's your responsibility to make the other person happy. So if I'm not happy, that's on you. It's your fault. You're not doing enough. You're not making sure that, you're reading my mind, or you could have done more. You could have said this. You could have said that. It's an impossible place to live. You cannot live in that environment. You can never be in a situation where you can know what somebody else wants. When you're in a relationship like that, be aware you are working and you are dealing with a spirit of offense for sure, because people with a spirit of offense, they want you to be able to guess what it is they need and meet that need before they ever express it. Well, that's impossible to do. You might get it right sometimes, but most of the time, you're not going to get it right. So there's that aspect of that unhealthy relationship, right? If I'm not happy, you're not doing enough. And then the truth about that is, in healthy relationships, both people make sacrifices. Maybe I do want to go with my girlfriends tonight. Maybe I do want to go for dinner and a movie with my girlfriends. But tonight, you're not feeling good and you just had something that happened at work and it was really not good. So I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to stay home with you. Or, maybe I want to go to the game and I really want to see the game, but I also see that you've been at home with the kids for 3 days and they're sick. So I'm going to stay home and I'm going to be with you tonight. And I'm going to give you the break. You can go to bed early. I'll deal with the kids. There's sacrifices on both sides in a healthy relationship. the thing about unhealthy relationships is they always end up in pain. They always end up in loneliness. I hear so many married people come in and they go, I'm just lonely. I'm lonely. I'm in a relationship and I'm alone. I feel lonely. And this is both men and women that can say that. I'm lonely. It's like, okay, so how can we fix that? How can we repair that? What can you do so that you can begin to feel that reciprocation coming from that other person? So, yeah, unhealthy relationships, it leads to pain and it leads to loneliness. And it doesn't mean that there's going to be an affair. It just means that, and there's a lot of that. I say to single people all the time, you know what? It's better to be alone and single than to be married and feel alone and lonely, right? Because you've got that person there. You were expecting a relationship that never quite came to its fulfillment. And as time goes by and then you begin to drift apart, and then it's difficult, right? So it's learning to repair that, learning to work through it, learning to and that growing apart doesn't have to happen in an abusive relationship. It certainly does in an abusive relationship, but it doesn't have to. Sometimes it's just that, you've got one person in the relationship that's goal oriented, career oriented, and the other one decides that, or together you've decided that one is going to stay home and take care of the children, or maybe you're both career oriented and the relationship just begins to separate, just begins to grow apart. And so if you don't work on your relationship, you're going to end up in a place of loneliness. And a lot of people get divorced for that. And I don't think that's a reason for divorce, to be completely honest. I think, if your spouse cheats on you, we know biblically that that is a reason for divorce. But I think that also, if you're being abused physically, if you're being berated emotionally every single day, I think abuse is also a reason for divorce. I don't think that Jesus intended that women or men should ever lose their life in a relationship because you got married. I don't think that that's how that should work. That doesn't sound like a loving God. We can live by the letter of the law, or we could say, where's the heart of God in a matter? So God would rather I die in my abusive relationship than leave him and be safe and raise my kids, or serve him in the capacity of some way in ministry. Like, no, let's take a moment and think about this, right? Because we serve a loving God, and a loving God is not going to say you stay in that relationship where you might die. I don't think so. I don't think so. So, truth is, a healthy relationship makes sacrifices, and a healthy relationship sets up boundaries, right? Boundaries are not unhealthy. Boundaries are the things, and they don't have to happen in relationships because we are afraid that the person that we're married to, or because, there's abuse that's going on in the relationship. Healthy relationships have boundaries. That's how it works. So a healthy, unspoken relationship boundary is, I'm not going to cheat on you, and you're not going to cheat on me. That's a healthy relationship boundary. I shouldn't have to say to my spouse, if you don't go and you don't touch another woman, or you don't flirt with another woman, right? Like, that's a boundary. I'm setting up a boundary. No, if you love me, respect says you're not going to touch another person. Love and respect and honor say you're not going to flirt with another woman because you love me. That's true love. So setting boundaries, and there's lots of boundaries, right? Like, okay, having a joint checking account. There's boundaries around that, right? I'm going to tell you what I spend. If I go to the store after work, I'm going to tell you what I'm spending. If the vehicle needs to be fixed, we're going to talk about how we're going to pay for that to be fixed. These are some boundaries. We don't just make decisions. Nobody goes out and buys a car and comes home and says, oh, hey, by the way, I bought a new car. Unless you've got the money to do that, and that's something that nobody cares about, that's fine. But there are boundaries around in healthy relationships. All the time, there are boundaries in healthy relationships. The other thing about a healthy relationship is it confronts those things that are unhealthy. We don't just put up with it. We don't say, wow, okay, well, I didn't like that, but I'm not going to say anything. So healthy relationships say, you know what? When you said this, when we were out, I didn't like that. So I just want to let you know, I didn't like it. And I don't really want it to happen again. And here's why I didn't like it. I'm not just going to pretend it didn't happen. because it did happen. And because it happened, now we need to have this conversation. You confront those things that are unhealthy, right? And so that goes to everything from, if you find your spouse involved in a conversation with a friend of theirs that is going kind of off track, you confront that. You confront the reasons for the outburst of anger or whatever. There's and I don't mean like you, it's just sitting down and having that conversation saying, hey, want to bring this up. Just want to let you know I did notice it. I noticed that you were uncomfortable when this thing happened. Why was that? Or you got a little upset when this happened. Why is that? Right? And then working those things through. Healthy relationships confront anything that is unhealthy because they want the relationship to grow. They want it to prosper. They want it to be successful. So, and another thing that healthy relationships do is they're not willing to be the only one that's committed to becoming healthy. In a healthy relationship, both people are working at becoming the best version of themselves in Jesus Christ that they can. They're working on their anger issues. Both of you are working. If you find yourself, because of past history, being a jealous individual, you're going to work on that so you can have a healthy relationship. These are some of the things we do in healthy relationships. Both people work together to become the best version of themselves, to become the healthiest version of themselves, working through their childhood traumas, working through their abandonment issues, working through their fear issues so that they can walk together and become the best version of themselves in Christ. And lastly, a healthy relationship stands up for what's healthy. I really appreciate, honey, that you stood up for me when that person started to attack me. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Oh, honey, I really appreciate the fact that you're going for counseling or that you are looking at, the reasons why you might be angry. I'm really appreciating that. I love you. You stand up for everything that is healthy. I appreciate the fact that you took out the garbage without being asked. I appreciate the fact that, you, whatever it is, you stand up for those things that are healthy and you say no to anything that is not being loving, right? So if you find that your relationship has some that there's a tendency, or sometimes that ugly thing steps up, that it's unloving, you talk about it. You have the conversation. You say, hey, that's not okay. So where do we go from here? Like, what are we going to have a code word when you start doing that? And I say, zebra, and you go, oh, okay, I'm doing it again, right? Like, but you look for those things that are healthy and you talk about those things that are unhealthy. You appreciate those things that are healthy and you value it by saying it, but you also talk and change, both of you, in a healthy relationship. So those are just two things. Well, it's probably more than two, but two lies that are believed to happen in unhealthy relationships. So that's it for today. We'll see you next week. You have yourself a great weekend, and happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there.